Hi, Burley. Hello. What do we have here? That's Braden. Hi, Braden. Oh, that reminds me, my attendance sheet. And there's Burley. Jack is here somewhere. There he is. One, two, three, four, five. Youth Symphony. Nick G. Oh, Minvin. Hi, Minvin. I heard some of your recordings and they were so beautiful.
Thank you. It's fun to play around with, yeah, I guess another me or two me's, yeah.
I know, it's fun. Have you ever done anything like that before?
No, this was the first time. Yeah, I think it's actually really fun. I have one of my coworkers who's here. She plays the cello, so I'm planning on playing some pieces with her.
Oh yeah. Well, I wanted to learn how to do it, so I tried it myself on soprano and tenor recorder, and I agree, it was so fun. I've never done that before. I hope everybody had fun with it. Zoe, Hannah. Okay. Question, Henry, 10, 13, wow. Sierra. Nathan, good. 16. Sierra, Jake. Welcome, everyone. We've got 19 of you here now. Mr. Berman should arrive any minute.
Hi, everybody. Good evening. Just quickly looking through our attendees to make sure we have most of the people here. Hope you all are doing well. I'm glad we have some less foggy, less smoky weather, so we can have our windows open in this hot weather. In just a second, I'll get into sharing a piece that Jack recommended. I really love it. But I'll maybe just give another 30 seconds or so for a few more people to jump on the call. Okay, well, let's get started. I asked you guys to be willing to share with me anything that you come across that excites you musically, and I'm still hoping that at some point soon we'll have an original project of some sort to share. Obviously, week by week, I'll be asking some of you if I can share your improv projects that we do, and I'm going to do that today. But I'm going to start with this piece that Jack sent me. It's really an interesting recording. So this is music by Handel, George Friedrich Handel, who is, I'm sure you all know the name, one of the most celebrated Baroque composers, German by birth, but English by where he lived most of his life. And this is a recording of one of his most well-known pieces, the water music, and probably the most well-known movement of that water music, the D major hornpipe. So this is performance by a music group that's kind of, well, really you could say this almost about any group now that's performing early music, because now it's so much of a necessity to really recognize the way we want to stylistically perform Baroque music or any early music, you know, let's say before 1800, which is to use instruments more suited to that music, to use a style that kind of reflects the research that's happened over the last 100 years, especially the last 50, 60 years. Just really, you know, using replicate instruments from the time. And some of the string players may actually own instruments that were born back in the 17th century. But most of them are probably playing instruments that were built to replicate instruments that existed back then. So what I'd like to do is play this clip of this movement. And I invite you to look carefully at the instruments. Listen carefully to how they're playing. Make some mental notes and be ready to discuss what you've seen and heard. So I'll share that now. There it is. Uh-oh. Sorry, folks. Okay. I'm going to pause this just for a second to let it buffer. Let's see if we can get a clearer connection. Huh. Sebastian says he's heard that it works better if people turn off their camera. I'm not sure if that's true, but temporarily you guys could turn off your video and we could see if that helps. Okay, let's try this again. Okay. Sorry for the bugs there, guys. As I recall, last week when I shared the video from the Berlin Phil, no one complained. It seemed like it was fine. Was that not the case? I don't understand why it's different this week. Some people were saying it was choppy last week too. Okay, so let me just ask, and let's start with raises of hands as opposed to just like cutting in, raising your hand through the Zoom interface. What did you notice about that impressed you or seemed unusual or in any way was new for you? Because I imagine probably most of you have heard that piece, if not played some version of it, maybe an arrangement. Any comments? Min?
I think it's not unusual, but most of the string players were playing with a Baroque bow.
Exactly right.
Usually it's a lighter bow, more for dance kind of music.
Yeah.
Also I believe it was the brass was standing. Maybe I'm wrong myself.
Right. Yeah, so both of those are astute comments. A Baroque bow, have you ever played with one, Min?
No, I haven't, no, unfortunately.
Yeah. So in the Baroque period, the bows were, the bend in the bow was opposite to all of your bows. In other words, instead of being concave, it's convex. So, you know, the bow hair is here and the bow shape is like this. And that was when bows really didn't have nearly as much pressure on the bow hair as they did now. So they were less able to get, you know, kind of a big heavy sound because the bow hairs were not stretched as tightly because they simply didn't have the whole ability to kind of like tighten the hair that same way. And the recurving of the bow, the backwards curve of the bow in modern bows allows a lot more pressure on the bowstring. They were also slightly shorter and definitely lighter, as Min said. So they would weigh a lot less than your bow and all of you strings. And the result of that is just, it's a little bit more, it can move more freely. It hits the strings with less weight. And you just tend to get a lighter kind of, yeah, I think Min said less dense sound, which I agree with that very much. I once heard a Baroque player pick up a modern bow and she said, "Oh my God, it's like holding a baseball bat." So that was her comment. Burley.
I just, something I noticed was the horn part. They're playing on natural horns. So you could hear notes that aren't in their harmonic series. They were stopping them, which gives a different sound, which is interesting to hear, to say the least.
Yeah. So Burley's exactly right. So those are natural horns. Both the horns and the trumpet are what are called natural horns and natural trumpet, respectively. They're called that because they have a length of pipe, and they only have, for the horns, the only way that they don't just play the harmonic series is if you stop the sound by shoving your hand in the bell to sort of change the pitch. So the fact that they can play anywhere near in tune is nothing short of a miracle. It just takes a ton of work. And the natural trumpets, the only way they can change the pitch is they have one little opening that allows them to sort of like, it's almost like playing a recorder. You can half close or fully close that opening to change the length of the instrument. And so you're otherwise just playing in the super high part of the instrument. So for you trumpet players, it would be like you can't press any keys down and you have to start at high C so that you can lip your way between whole steps and half steps. And Min mentioned they're standing. That's especially because they have these longer instruments that really aren't possible to sit down with.
Something interesting about natural horns is that they're far more crisp on the notes that you can reach. So the partials between them are very well defined, at least in my experience.
Cool. Yeah, in that same situation where I saw the woman pick up the modern bow and she said it felt like a baseball bat, I saw two extremely good professional trumpet players play natural trumpet for the first time. This was a workshop, and they were terrible. They absolutely sounded horrible, and they were obviously really embarrassed, which they shouldn't have been because it's so different and so difficult. It really is its own art to play those instruments. Hank.
Just in the perspective of a bass player, I enjoy sitting down and I enjoy playing with a French bow. but I do aspire to play Baroque music at some point. So I noticed they're all playing with very heavy German-style bows that have a very large tip on them, and so that'll at some point be an interesting transition for me to make if I want to end up playing some Baroque music in an ensemble like that.
Interesting. I know that for violin, viola, cello, the Baroque bows are actually lighter. And I don't know if that's the case for bass. Actually, for bass, I really have very little knowledge about how the Baroque instrument came about, because bass is its own beast. You know, it's related to the violone and these other instruments rather than being just a bigger version of the cello. Yeah. So, any other thoughts? What about the articulation? Anything else?
When I first watched it, at least it really struck me that where they put emphasis, the notes that they put emphasis on seem vastly different than the like modern recordings I've heard, and where the emphasis is on the beat. I don't have the technical knowledge, I guess, to describe exactly what it is, but I know it sounds different than what I was used to hearing in modern recordings of the same piece.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I mean, they just have really great phrasing, and the phrasing makes sense to me when I think about Baroque music. So when you have, for example, what's called a hemiola come up in the music, and we've talked about this in past years, that's when you have when you have a sequence of 2 beats being emphasized in a 3/4 meter. So if we're going 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, and then we have right? That's a hemiola, and they really brought out those rhythmic figures. The other thing is they shaped everything, so they don't go, you know, so you really feel the larger metrical phrasing of the piece instead of just da 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 da, which, you know, in the words of Miles Davis, it doesn't do nothing. He was talking about a different kind of rhythmic situation, but it's true, you know, like phrasing is as much, and this is, you can take this to the bank, everyone. Phrasing is as much about de-emphasis as it is about emphasis. We don't just go from mezzo forte to fortissimo all the time to make a point, right? It's about being subtle. So we want to sort of emphasize our emphases and let everything else flow a little bit more. So that's what I think they did really well. Yeah, and they also just played really detached. Right? Da 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 dee da da da. Again, it's the style, and it really works. So kudos to Jack for picking that out. One last thing I'll say is, if you can hear my piano, this is the key of C sharp major, right? They played it in Baroque pitch, which when we think of Baroque continental music, for the most part, it wasn't super consistent. But when we look at a piece that's in D, like the hornpipe in D that we just heard, Baroque instruments would have been tuned to A415. So instead of our A440, in other words, 440 hertz creates the pitch A, their A was tuned to 415. So that's really not, we'll call that a general rule. It was different from country to country. Some countries were even sharper than 440, but generally that was the accepted pitch at the time. All right, great. Thank you again, Jack. That was fun. All right, up next, so let's talk about this last week, and let's start with the good stuff, and there's quite a bit of it. First of all, I continue to really enjoy your improvisations. They're really making me happy, and I thought it was amazing that a few of you worked together. So one person sent a track to another person, and they started to create some duets. I know Xander and Hannah did that, Adi and Adina, and I think Adina, you did a duet with somebody else. I can't remember, and maybe others of you did. That's wonderful. I wanted to share a couple of projects that I thought were really super fun, because I just think it's nice for us to know what everyone is doing. So I'm going to share again, but I'm not going to share video since I'm just going to do audio on this. Okay. So I'm going to start with Ben. Ben, you wrote up an arrangement for yourself to play on trombone from Endgame Portals.
I did not write this. I did not write this by any means, no.
Oh, okay. So you were playing a sheet music that you already had.
Yes. Yeah, yeah. Someone else did this.
Oh, okay. Okay. Well, I'm still impressed, but still, I thought it was pretty cool. But you did add the bass drum sounds, which
the violin and the bass drum part.
yeah, which is kind of reminiscent of Fanfare for the Common Man.
Yeah.
So I'm going to play this now, and y'all, it came through pretty softly. So I'm wearing headphones and I can hear it pretty clearly. When I was listening just on my computer audio without headphones, it was kind of hard to hear. So I'll just warn you about that. So here it is. It's going to start any second now. All right, bravo, Ben. Nice work. Yeah, we already talked about this on email, but you're going to have to work on those levels coming into your recording. I know you're hearing it well through your equipment while you're doing it, but you can hear it's just the levels as you save it are just really low. So you can just keep working on that. All right. Up next, I'm going to share something that that's a little bit of maybe a surprise for all of you. But along with all of your work, Jerry, our operations manager, is also doing recording work, and she did a piece for Recorder, which is an instrument that she plays. And Jerry gave me permission to share this. Jerry, you want to introduce it?
Okay. It's the piece is from a book called Canzonets for Two Voices, and I played it on soprano and tenor recorder, and it was so much fun. And an interesting thing to me was that what I put in the folder was the very first time I recorded it, and then I recorded it about, I don't know, 15 more times. I was trying to make it better, and it just I think I got excited and I played sharp, or I don't know. So I don't know if others had this experience with listening to their own recordings, but it was interesting to me that the rough first draft was actually the best one. So
Great. Well, let me share this now. Whoops. Okay. Awesome. Very well done, Jerry. Beautiful.
Thanks.
And finally, I didn't ask permission in advance, so I'm just going to quickly ask. Hunter, are you good if I share yours from this week?
Yeah, it's totally fine.
Cool. And Hunter, I want to just, since I got you on the line, as it were, I just want to ask you real quick. Is it also okay, even though this is going to be not as flattering, if I share the first track you shared with me for Great Gate, just to demonstrate the click problem?
Oh, yeah, sure.
Okay, thanks. Okay, so this is Hunter's improvisation that he did this week. Really, really beautiful. I'm sorry, I ended it just a little bit too soon there. Yeah, I'm guessing, Hunter, you did the first half of that with your added top tracks, and then were you still like looping the one part of it?
Yeah, I think I just didn't cut the loop out.
Sure, yeah.
Either
And
way,
so
the
your
crap out
approach,
of it.
yeah. So your approach to that seems like you were kind of thinking like A minor for 3 slow beats and then 1 beat of the kind of dominant sound, or was that kind of your approach?
I don't know. I mean, I kind of just like completely improv'd it. So I started with like the slower tracks that didn't have much like embellishment or anything, and then I just played what I felt fit well with the skeleton, I think.
Yeah, it worked great. Yeah, it just happened that it seemed like there was a sort of harmonic rhythm to it that I was hearing that I liked. All right.
I just happened to listen the theme song of Naruto, and it's played by like a Japanese bamboo flute, like a
Shakuhachi.
shakuhachi, yeah, and it kind of reminded me of that.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Was there any inspiration there, Hunter, or was this just off the top?
No. I mean, not really. It's the scale is probably more associated with like Eastern music, but yeah.
Sure. So bravo to all of you and your improvisations. I'm sharing those, but really all of them are wonderful, and I'm impressed with what you all are doing. Okay, moving on. So I shared some things that I was really excited about, and now I'm going to share some things that I'm excited for us to get past, some issues we've been having. So you probably read my email that I sent out this afternoon. I hope you all read that. There's a couple of things that we need to address, and I hope we can kind of do it quickly so so some of the technical side of this work that we're doing with BandLab can be put behind us and we just are comfortable with it moving forward. First of all, and really importantly, I really need to receive your work that you do in BandLab in the Google Drive. It's not enough to just share it with me through BandLab. And the reason is I just have so many of your pieces to shuffle that if I have to look at different places for them, it's basically kind of like me driving to your house and picking it up, you know, the virtual or the digital version of that. If I have to like go on BandLab, find what you've shared with me, download it myself, and then add it to the recording that I'm creating. So I really need everyone to work out the way to share directly to the Google Drive with your folder the folder with your name. That would just help me do the work that I have to do, which is a lot. So what I've done is I made a video describing exactly how to do that from the app. And maybe you've had a chance to watch that. It's only like 2 minutes long. So I'm going to show it to you right now. And it shows the directions for doing what I'm asking you to do using your device and using the BandLab app. Okay. Where are you? Here we go. I guess you all can let me know if this video has trouble like the last one did. I'm assuming since there's so much less happening with it, both with audio and video, that hopefully it'll be smoother.
This is a video showing how to export your recordings from BandLab to the Google Drive. I've already created a recording for myself here. You can see I've renamed it NB Great Gate A to C. And above that is the MIDI recording that you're using to record to. So for our purposes, we need to make sure we're just exporting only your sound file and not the MIDI file. So to do that, I go down to the lower left icon, the one which shows the sliders or the equalizer kind of thing on the lower left of the screen, press that. Then I see the 2 tracks with the volume sliders. On the purple track, I'm going to select the 3 dots, and that'll pop up a menu. And now I'm going to choose download. So now it will give you a bunch of options of where you want to download to. You need to have the Google Drive app on your device in order for this to work. And you see Drive is one of the options there. If you don't see it at first, you can go to the More, and that will call up a bunch of other possibilities. But instead, I'm just going to choose Google Drive. Okay, I could have done it from that earlier icon. I'm going to choose Google Drive here. It'll ask you your account. I'm selecting my account. Now at the bottom of the screen, you see the option Select Folder. I'm going to choose that. From my drive, so you will choose Shared Drives, okay? Because I've shared the drive with you. I'm going to choose my drive, but you will choose Shared Drives. Then I'll find SCCYS material. There it is. I'll choose that. I'll go to Repertoire Recordings, and I will find my folder. I made one for myself here, Mr. Berman. Okay, and now in the lower right, you see Save Here. Choose that. And the upper right, choose Upload. Okay, so now my file will be in the Google Drive. So that's how to save your recordings when you're just wanting to send the one file.
Okay, so that video is now in the Google Drive that you guys have access to. So if you go to the Google Drive, instead of going into the Repertoire Recordings folder, on the main page of the Google Drive folder, you'll see that video I just shared with you. You can watch it again when you need to do so, just to make sure that you're sharing in the way that we need to. File, download, and download track. Yeah, that might be because you're using, Jake, if you're using the browser version, there's a lot more options available. I haven't dealt with that because it's just a little bit more complicated. Okay, so now what I want to do is talk a little bit about the recording that's coming together and show you how it's coming together so far. So a lot of you sent recordings today, and if you sent it to me after like 3 in the afternoon, it was just too late for me to get it into what I've assembled so far. I mean, I'll definitely get to it, but that's why I asked if we could turn things in by Saturday, because by mid-afternoon, especially with UCSC starting tomorrow, I just didn't have time to get to it. But I want to share with you, am I still sharing my screen? I think I am. I want to share with you first a document that I'm putting together. And I'm sorry if this puts some of you kind of on blast, and I don't mean to make anyone feel embarrassed. And furthermore, some of you who on this document are listed as not having submitted yet probably shared with me on BandLab, and I just haven't gotten to get the part yet because I need to have it shared to the Google Drive. But this is the roster document that you guys have put your BandLab usernames on. And what I've done over here is I've put an X next to all the people who have shared with me a complete and usable sound file for Great Gate from this last week. Okay, so it's really very few. And again, I'm not throwing you under the bus. If you don't have a check mark there, it might very well be because you've shared it with me thinking that was what you're supposed to do just through BandLab as opposed to through the Google Drive. So I really need that. So if you have a C next to your name, that means that you sent your recording with the click track still on it. And I'm going to talk about that in a minute. But what it means is I can still hear the click track and the MIDI as well as you're playing, which is definitely not what we want. Okay, so some of these were really great sounding, but I can't use them because we had the click track. And some of these question marks were just issues with tempo or with volume, where it was just not usable because it didn't match up with the click or because it was too soft or something like that. So, so you see we have a long ways to go just to get this first segment in. But again, I think that probably almost all of you have finished recording that and just haven't forwarded it to me yet. Now I'm going to share with you what it looks like, this thing that we're putting together. So this is the studio where your recordings are going. And you can see that there are some of these, this where it says bounce 1, this is actually what I sent you all. So if I play that, you'll hear exactly what you've heard this week as you record. Okay, so as I get your recordings, I'm putting them into this kind of studio thing and matching it up to that track. So if I take some of these and add them in now, you'll start to hear I'm putting some of these in so that we'll hear them as well as the track. Okay, so if I play it now, and actually I'll mute the main track and we'll just hear ourselves. It's less than a third of the group already, and it already sounds really quite good. So I'm impressed by that. And one thing I want to say that's just like a funny little side note is that Mia and Johnny, I'm not sure if Mia's on the call, she's in Germany, but you guys recorded in unison separately, and you did a pretty good job of playing in tune together. It's kind of shocking because to have two oboes playing in unison where they're not hearing one another at the same time is just really hard to get in tune. So that worked out fairly well. So that is what, it's just kind of like a taste of what we're trying to do together, is to build this actual sound of a piece. And we're on a pretty good, we've gotten off to a pretty good start, having just, like I say, so few people on this so far. So I asked Hunter earlier if I could demonstrate his first submission, and he played absolutely beautifully. But what he did is similar to what probably another 6 or 7 of you did, which was he submitted the entire recording, including the click track and the MIDI. So even though he played really well, it's not usable. And let me demonstrate that right now by playing what Hunter submitted. So you can already hear the click track. And you hear his beautiful playing, but you also hear the MIDI and the click track in the background. And so it's not usable, of course, because we want to not hear any of that. So again, that wasn't just Hunter. That was probably, I don't know, 7 or 8 people total who had that issue. So that was why I wanted to make that video, to make sure that we knew exactly how to export only your playing and not the click track. So what I want to do right now is going to be rather elaborate, and it requires that you all have your instruments, and I'm not sure how many of you are listening to this call on the same device that you do BandLab, but I hope you have your BandLab device available, and we can just try a really quick practice recording right now. It's going to be kind of a throwaway project, but that's what I'd like to do. So could you take us a minute, everybody, to get your instruments set, warm up for 30 seconds or so, and get your music out and your BandLab app set to record. So I'll just give a minute or so for that. I'm catching up with the chat, and some people are pleasantly surprised. I'm glad. Burley says, does there exist a program that can recreate the sympathetic vibrations we see in a live orchestra? I'm not sure exactly what you mean by that. You're not talking about reverb, are you, Burley?
I'm thinking of similar to, you know, if you play a violin and there's another violin sitting next to you, the violin strings will start to vibrate just due to the vibrations in the air, right? And I think that gives a certain tone to live performances in a way, I would guess.
I mean, what you're saying is scientifically correct. I mean, I think it'd be more likely that the violin player is creating the sympathetic vibrations themselves just from the force of their sound coming off the string that they're playing. But I think that is such a subtlety. I think it's more likely that what we would experience, I mean, one thing that I haven't done to that recording at all is add reverb, which I will do once I'm starting to build it in more detail. And that will automatically kind of like some of the harsh edges of the sound that we hear when we're just hearing a very flat recording will be taken away. It'll frankly cover a little bit of some intonation issues. But I don't know any way, Burley, of doing that. Probably at Skywalker Sound they have that, but not at Berman Sound. I also see Ben mentioning that if you mute the click track in MIDI, then export the whole thing, it works. That's exactly right. Hi, Anya. We're getting ready to try a practice recording, which is just going to be a really short experimental recording to make sure that we all know how to export properly. So if you get your instrument set and BandLab ready, that'd be great. So for any of you who, for whatever reason, don't have your instrument ready and with you, maybe percussionists, if you can still use BandLab to just like kind of do anything, the point is just to open up Great Gate and to create a new track. Even next to the one you've already made. Don't replace your old one. Just make a new one, and that's what we're going to record to. It might be helpful, guys, if you turn your video back on, just so I can see who's ready. Okay, there's many of you with your video off, and I'm not sure if you're ready or not. Okay, well, we're going to get started and just hope everyone's ready. So, okay, pick up your BandLab app, please, and open it to GreatGate the same one you've made a project on already, probably. And once you've done that, please add a new track. Okay, we're going to record a new track, and you don't have to change anything about your old track. You don't have to save this one that we're doing. It's just going to be an experiment to make sure we're good with knowing how to record. Okay. So what I would like you to do is just start, when you're ready, just start and record the first, we'll just say, I don't know, let me see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 bars of the piece. And trombones and trumpets, you guys can just play letter A, okay? What I mean is, like, right at the very beginning, right when you get counted in, play letter A. That's fine, you know, it's the same chord, so it's fine. And just play for 12 bars and stop, everyone. So it doesn't matter if this is good or bad, okay? This recording does not need to be saved. It's only just to sort of do your best to play as well as you can. Now, what is crucial is please play with the metronome. That was another big issue this last week, is that people getting off track rhythmically, so they didn't match up with the beat. So really make sure you're playing into the beat of the metronome. Okay, so let's give a minute or so for this. When you're ready, please go ahead and record. Again, it doesn't have to be perfect, just do your best and record the first 12 bars of the piece. Okay, I see pretty much everybody is done. I just give another 10 seconds. Okay, great. So the next step is not yet to upload, okay? The next step is to listen critically to your playing. So to do that, go back to the screen in the app where you can see all the tracks together. To do that, of course, you use the little downward facing caret in the upper right of the window, assuming you're using a device and not your laptop. And now you want to just make sure that all the tracks, maybe if you have a track you've already recorded, you want to mute that one. But you want to make sure that you can hear the track you've recorded and the MIDI mockup, and then play it back and listen to it. Okay, so what you're listening for now is, did you play in the beat? Does it sound in tune? And are you happy with it? Okay, this is what you'd ask yourself, especially if you'd practiced and this was the one you wanted to submit and not just a 12-bar one-off. But just do that now, please. Listen back to it and see if you find yourself really fitting into the click track and fitting into the intonation. And if you have any questions about how to do that, please, now's the time to ask. Okay, so hopefully by now you've listened to what you just recorded, and regardless of whether you're happy with it or not, we're gonna submit it online, and I promise you I won't use it in the recording. But can you rename the file now, please? And why don't you rename it with your initials, and how about your initials, and we'll say don't use. So if it was me, I'd write NB don't use. Okay, Amy, to rename, you select the 3 dots on the track. So you go to the place on the track where you see the 3 dots. Let's see if I can, where's my iPad? Here. Just a second and I'll show you how to do this. So this is what your, let me just make sure I can see myself. This is what your tracks would look like. And if you choose this icon on the lower left here, then you open that menu. And on your track, let's say your track is the purple track, you would choose the 3 dots on the upper right side of that purple box. And that will give you the option to rename. Like this. Okay. Once you've renamed it with your initials and don't use, select that same menu like this and choose download. Now I need to emphasize this step will only work if you have the Google Drive app on your device. If you don't, it won't work. But if I choose download in that menu, then this is where we get to what you saw in the video. I get this menu, and if I flip through these options, I will eventually, this is impossible to do backwards, I will eventually see Google Drive. And if I don't see it there, which there it is right there, oops. Oh, yeah. again, if I don't see it there, I would see it possibly in the More part of the menu. If you select that, you might get more apps to choose from. Once you have selected Google Drive, then what do you do? Once you've selected Google Drive, then select your username at the top of the screen. At the bottom of the screen, choose Select Folder. Let's check the chat. Ah, okay, Jake. Select folder appears for me at the bottom of the screen like this. So at the top is your file name. At the bottom, you should have select folder. On your iPhone, you can only select your own drive, not shared drives. Huh.
To fix that, you can go into your own drive and then just search for SCCYS. And if
okay, that seems. Yeah, thanks for that. Thanks, Hunter. So, Robin, the answer to your question, I think Hunter is correct that you can select your own drive and then look for shared folders. Looking for other issues. Amy, have you found the select folder option? Okay, I'm gonna move on for the moment. Yes, you can click your drive. That's fine. And in fact, after you click your drive, that should be when you see the select folder option. So once you click select folder, if you have the option, you select shared drives. If you don't, select my drive. And then in your drive, look for SCCYS material. That's the name of the folder that I created. I know this is all backwards and that's confusing. Okay, so that's what you want to select. From there, it should be pretty easy. Then you'll select repertoire recordings, find the folder that has your name. Once you've found the folder that has your name, it's not very apparent, but in the lower right, you have the Save Here option. So you choose that. And then there's one final step, and then the upper right is the option to upload. And that's where you do that. So you press upload, and you'll see the little status bar fill up as it uploads your file, and then you're good. All right, Amy, bravo. Beautiful. Hannah, yes, you can do that. That's perfectly fine. It's an extra step for you because it's a little easier to move it just from one app to the other. But that if it's not working out, that's okay. And Hannah, if you're using the browser version, when you say browser, if you mean you're literally using a laptop or a computer as opposed to the app, it's a little bit different in terms of how the interface works. Okay, let me see if I can quickly look at the browser version. So what you could do from the browser version is still click on the 3 dots on the track that you want to select, and then choose Export Track as WAV. It's going to be a different kind of file, but it will still work. Oh, wait a second. That didn't give me the option of where to export it to. That didn't work. Ingrid says the SCCYS folder isn't showing up. Have you found it, Ingrid, in any other way, like just by looking online in the past? Like, have you been able to access it at all?
I don't think I have. I can't remember though.
I wonder if it's possible I somehow didn't share it with you. I'm just going to check that real quick. Thanks for your patience, everybody. This is going to be really helpful. If, like a few people, you're still having issues, do chat or let us know, because we really want to make sure that everyone's clear on how to do this. So Ingrid, I do see that you're on I've shared this folder with you, and I've shared it through the email that you have through PCS Charter.
Yeah, that's what I'm signed on to Google Drive on, so I don't know why it's not showing up.
Yeah, neither do I. So on Google Drive, you have, I'm sorry if this is really obvious, or I don't know what you've tried so far. You have clicked on your shared drives in Google Drive?
Yeah, I have. And I also tried like searching it, but it says I don't have any shared drives.
And it doesn't show up if you just checked My Drives, and then if you do a search in My Drives at the top of the
No, it
screen.
did not show up.
It's so weird. Do you have any other email, Ingrid?
Yeah, I have another email.
Maybe would you mind emailing me with your alternate email, and I can try sharing it to that email and see if that makes a difference?
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
Mr. Berman.
Yes.
It doesn't show up for me in my drive either. It doesn't show up in shared drives, and it doesn't show up in my drive. What I have to do is I have to go to my drive and then click on the search icon and search SCCYS, and then like the materials folder will come up.
I think Ingrid was saying she tried that. Isn't that what you said, Ingrid?
Yeah, I tried searching it and there was
Yeah.
no luck.
Okay. That's weird. So yeah, just try that. Try what I suggested with the email, and we'll see if that can work out. Jake also suggests if you're signed into multiple Gmails, SCCYS doesn't show up.
Oh, that would be the problem.
Okay, that could be it. So maybe try signing out of your non-PCS email and then see if that helps.
Yeah, okay, I'll try that. Thank
Okay.
you.
Yeah. Jake, I'm not sure why. Did your file complete its saving process?
No, I'm just getting that circle, the little loading thing at the top of the screen, and then the save down button are just like gray, and you can't click them until it says like you can't download it until you've saved it.
Huh. Are you on a really slow connection?
Yeah, we have some like
I think the answer to that is apparent by hearing your audio come through. Okay, so that's probably the issue. It's just it's taking a while to go through. So I'm gonna bring this part of our work to a close because it's getting a little bit long to spend on this. But I hope that answered most people's questions about how to do this thing that I'm asking. And there's one more point. Okay, Ingrid. So. Still no luck with that other account. Okay, then let's go with the other plan. Send me your other email to my email, and I will connect you to the Google Drive on that account, and we'll see if that helps.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. If worst comes to worst, you and I can work out some sort of like specific way to share these files over email, but hopefully we can figure it out. Yeah, so there's one more point I want to make, which is that this way that we're working on sharing that we just spent all this time to do is very specifically if you're sharing one track. If you're sharing the entire project, for example, when you create your improvisations with multiple tracks, then the whole thing is a little bit easier because you don't have to start by selecting just the one track and do it the way we've been doing it. You can either use the export icon that is in the upper right of the screen, the little cloud icon, or from the main menu, from your library, if you have a file, you can choose that file, choose any one of these files, use the, you can, I guess, I'll just open one. You get to this display, and then with the little arrow, the little share arrow, you have options for sharing to download that way, and that will choose. Sorry, I'm trying to see what I'm displaying here. That will automatically share every track that is on the project, which I think is maybe how many of you accidentally send me the click track. Okay, so that would be a way to share every track at once, very simply. All right. Oh, okay. So for what I'd like to do as far as Great Gate this week is just make sure that we have everything up, I'll say through letter C, recorded really well. And I don't really want to go into C yet, because I think C will benefit from some work in sectionals, which we're going to hold in a couple of weeks, especially for those of you who have the 8th note runs and firsts in particular on those 16th notes you have to play it. It's something that wants some extra practice. But what I do encourage you to do this week is make sure that your recording up through C is really as beautiful as you can make it, and that I receive it hopefully in the next 3 or 4 days, so I can continue putting this recording together. I don't feel like we're really falling behind because we don't have that much rep to record overall, but I would really love it if by next week, every single person has submitted their best recording up through C that you've listened to with the click to make sure that you're right on the beat, okay? It just takes a long time for me to correspond with everybody about issues that come up in the recordings. So if there's like one missed note or something like that, it's not a big deal. But if you're off rhythmically for much of the segment, that becomes kind of impossible to deal with. The other assignment I want to give you for this week, there'll be another thing I'll mention later, but please start practicing Beethoven. It's a movement of Beethoven's that's not very hard technically. It's really beautiful. And next week we'll talk more about it and start listening to it. And of course you'll work on it in sectionals in 2 weeks. But please start to practice Beethoven. Now trombones, for you guys, this is gonna take a minute, but I'm going to try to generate some parts for you to play on that. I know Beethoven didn't write them, and he might not, from his shadowy grave care for me adding trombone parts, but even if they aren't substantial, I'm going to add some trombone parts so you have something to play in that piece. Percussionists, Rio, I saw that you sent in a track. I haven't got a chance to listen to it yet for Great Gate. I really appreciate that. I'm looking forward to hearing it. But you and Jaden, what's really important for you these next couple of weeks, practice the Tekeli piece on mallets, okay? Practice it on marimba because it's pretty challenging. So I would take the time to really make sure that you can get those notes under your fingers, under your mallets, as it were, because the only way to play Tekeli is with mallets, probably on marimba, and it's fairly hard, especially when you get into the 16th note stuff. So please do look at that and start working on it, because when we get to recording that piece, it'll be really beneficial if you've practiced it well already. Okay. There is one more thing I'd like to do with Great Gate, and it has to do with how you're going to practice a part near the end. So can you look at your Great Gate part, everyone, please? This applies to everybody. And let's see. Look after letter F, where you see the 3-2 bar. This is not notated the same way that Mussorgsky or Ravel notated it, and it's kind of unfortunate because it's really, frankly, this editor did a great job with the rest of the piece, but this is very poor notation. So the way that Mussorgsky and Ravel, well, Mussorgsky specifically, worked that out rhythmically was that the 3-2 bar was, oh gosh, am I remembering this correctly? It was a 3-2 bar, but I think it was, well, I have the score right over here. Well, the main point is the last beat of that 3-2 bar is 2 quarter notes, and it's played in, almost everyone plays the first of those 2 quarter notes, and the brass in particular play the last of the 2 quarter notes. That's notated very differently in the original. And the point being, this part is very stretched in every performance that's ever happened. So the way that I've done that in the MIDI recording is such that I've reinterpreted the 3-2 bars to actually be 4 bars of 3-4. That's really confusing sounding. So I'm going to explain what I mean. If you just take the first 6 triplet beats of the measure, and that means you're either playing half note triplets or you're playing 6 quarter note triplets. I have actually turned those into groups of 3. So instead of the way that you see it arranged, you'll actually hear the quarter note of the triplet being played. So you'll hear 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, and then you'll be on the last 2 quarter note beats of the measure. So if, let's say I am either a bassoon, a viola, cello, bass, or the left hand of the piano, I will actually hear click, 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 corresponding to every single one of the quarter notes that you play. So that would mean you'd hear something like, let's see, who can I play? If I was a cello, if you can hear this piano. Oops, what is going on? Oh my God. There we go. So you would hear, I'll count off 6 beats. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, those are the triplets. And you'll hear 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Now, if I'm a violin, if I'm actually any other instrument, I'm playing half note triplets. And so it's first violins are playing this. And you would hear, and this is the same rhythm for anybody else who's playing this rhythm. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, I hope that makes sense. If you're playing those half note triplets, it sounds like 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Then, this is where it gets very confusing. The last 2 quarter note beats of that measure each get 3 beats themselves. So that means overall we'd hear something like this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, so those last 2 quarter notes become one whole bar of 3, 4. I'm now going to, Burley says I've got a mix of halves and quarters. Yeah, what I'm saying though, Burley, is that your part would be something like this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, for the first half of the measure. And then following that, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, it's very confusing. So instead of me explaining further, let me go to the MIDI and play that part so you can hear what I'm talking about. What bar is this? Okay, I think I found it. Let me just share this with you. Okay, here we go. Okay, that I just jumped right into it. That was probably rather confusing. Let me go back 4 bars so that I'm starting 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 bars after F. I hope. I think this is where I think I'm in the right place here. One, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And then we're at the grave. Okay, so that all happened very quickly, and I think I went back the wrong number of bars. So let me try that one more time. Okay, so this should be 4 bars before you have the marking poco a poco rao. So what we're hearing here is 4 bars of slowing down 4/4, and then we go into that situation where it's 3 groups of 3. Oh, wait a minute. Now I'm remembering something else. Okay, guys, sorry that I'm adding confusion on top of confusion. I think what I did was I went into 6/8 here with the click track. And this is starting after F, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 bars after F, I go into 6/8 with the click track because almost everyone is playing in triplets, except the people who are playing half notes and whole notes. So you'll hear 4 bars of ta, ti, ta, ta, ti, ta, ta, ti, ta. And then when we get to the 3/2 bar, it'll be as I described. Here we go. Yeah, I still didn't start the right number of bars back. I'm so sorry, everybody. So that might be confusing. Let me see by raise of hands who doesn't feel that they're understanding what I'm saying. And if that's half of you, and that's perfectly fine, because I'm not sure I'm explaining this very well. Okay. Yeah. Correct, Ben. This is at the end. It's where your part says grave or looks like grave, G-R-A-V-E. It's 2 bars before that we're talking about. Well, you know what? I think, yes, Avery, I changed the sound of the meter to 6/8, even though the actual meter it doesn't change. And I changed the meter, I think, well, I think it was 4 bars before the poco a poco rao. I'm going to, you all, give some more thought to how to describe this so I can make it clearer for everybody. And I think what I'll do is make sure that next time around I can do a better job of explaining it, because it's something that I think the editor of this edition didn't do a very good job of preparing. So I had to sort of make some choices that were a little awkward in terms of how I did the MIDI. Okay, before I talk too much longer, I wanted to also just do a little bit of introduction to the Kelly piece in C Dorian. So you're welcome to pull that up right now. We're not going to do any playing of it. So I'm not sure if any of you have heard of the composer Terry Riley. He is still a living composer. I think he's in his mid 80s now. And he came to prominence in the 60s and 70s when American minimalist music was kind of exploding onto the scene. And when we think of American minimalism, if you know these names, you might think of Philip Glass or Steve Reich. And Terry Riley, so those Reich and Glass were the sort of New York scene minimalists in the 60s and 70s. Philip Glass, if you're familiar with his stuff, writes a lot of music that sounds something like this. I'm not sure how much of that you can hear, but it's just a lot of driving simple structures with meter changes, where Steve Reich was more about these processes where one thing would start and another thing would slowly overlap it. That's a very simplified way of talking about their music. Terry Riley had a much more kind of West Coast organic approach to writing. And he also is a kind of remarkable pianist that could do some ridiculous things on the piano, like playing two completely different tempos at the same time. He wrote a piece that became a sort of jumping off point for a huge amount of music after it, and it was called In C. And it was called that because most of it was just in the key of C. Anybody by raise of hand ever heard of this piece before? No? No? Okay. So oh, Ingrid has. Cool. He's somebody, Simona has heard of it as well. He's somebody whose music would have been played at some point at the Korea Music Festival, I'm sure. You know, he exists in a kind of obscure musical world, but in that world, his name really rings out. So he wrote a piece called In C that is very, very unique in terms of the way it's scored. And I'm going to share the score with you right now. And I'm going to share it as it appears on the YouTube video that I'm going to play in just a second. This video has really no video component to it, so hopefully it'll work okay. So this is the complete score to In C. No, why don't you? There we go. Still not. Oh, there we go. Okay. Sorry, I didn't mean to start the music yet. What you're seeing are 53 fragments, and there are elaborate directions for how to play this piece. But in short, he asks for a group of people of any number, but he hopes for as many as 35, to go through these 55 fragments, playing each one in turn as many times as the individual wants before moving on, with only one thing driving the ensemble, and that's one player playing repeated notes like this. Okay, so one player is playing 8 notes, and it's usually played either on piano or on xylophone or sometimes vibraphone. And that's what's making sure that everyone stays together. So if you're, you know, one of the players playing this, you would start off by playing this first idea. Then when you feel like it, go on to the second idea. When you want, go on to the third idea. Fourth idea. Fifth idea is exactly the same. It's just a different rhythmic interpretation. And so you can see it starts off fairly simple, but then by the time you get to 11, we're getting into some stuff that's quite hard to play on some instruments. And all of these are different lengths. In other words, this is 3 8 notes long. This is, what is it? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 beats long. So you have to be careful you're counting the right number of rests. I mean, look at this one. You have all these dotted quarter notes and then an 8th note at the end. So you're thinking 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, so you have that little skip at the end, which can be very confusing. And he asks the players to listen to one another and try to stay at least within a few excerpts of each other. And also to try to gravitate towards louder and softer sounds while listening to one another. So let's just listen to a little bit of this piece. Okay, it's an hour long. Obviously, we're not going to hear very much of it. I think what I'm going to do is start it, then go into maybe the middle of it. Skipping just a little bit ahead. Okay, I'm going to skip farther into the piece. Yeah, hear that piece? Okay, maybe one more excerpt from late in the piece. Okay, I'll stop there. But imagine if you had to play this right here, right? Because the underlying 16 notes, I don't even know if I can do this on the piano. All of a sudden, you're really feeling like it's in a different meter. And that's part of what's beautiful about the piece, is that it creates such kind of a this meditative, I don't know what you say, just wall of sound around different senses of meter, different senses of where the beat is, and all within really one simple mode that's mostly C major with a few added F sharps and B flats. That ensemble that we just heard obviously was using some synthesizers. You were hearing some of the wash where the synthesizer player was like adding some, I don't know, doing some pedaling or something like that to change the sound. But it wasn't a very big ensemble. That sounded to me like it was probably maybe 10 players. And Reich asked for much more than that. So that's the inspiration for Frank Tekeli's in C Dorian. Now, you may know that Dorian is the name of a musical mode or a scale mode where you play a minor scale, but the sixth is raised rather than flat. So this would be normal minor. Dorian. So we're going to be playing in C minor. So essentially, C minor would normally have 3 flats, of course, but there you'll only see 2 flats in the key signature if you're playing a C instrument in this piece. Okay, so that is the mode that he's drawing from, and he's using that same idea as Terry Riley, in that he's using these small melodic bits and pieces that we record and move on from one to the other as we wish. So the way that we'll do that is going to be sort of up to you, and I'll describe it in more detail later. But essentially, I'm going to leave it to you how many times each one of you plays the various excerpts. And what we're going to aim for is kind of an overall duration that we all play. So as you do your recording, you can sort of work out, about how many times you want to repeat a given section, so that overall we're aiming for about the same amount of time. But I think it's going to be really fun to work on. And actually, this is a piece that, in a way, we're not getting some of the most fun aspect of it by playing it separately, which is to say we won't listen to each other until we have the music all together. So it's a piece that I think we're going to hold on to, and we'll record it, but then I'd like us to play it in concert once we're all back together, whenever that happens. Okay, assignment for this week. Please make sure that you've recorded up through letter C in GreatGate, and that you're really happy with the recording, and that you send me to the Google Drive a version that you're really happy with, that matches the tempo. Okay, that's super critical, is that this week I'd like you to really listen carefully with your recording and the click track and make sure that they match up well, and make sure that I get everyone's recording. Please continue to make another weekly improvisation. I was stoked that some of you work together with each other on projects. This week, if you do it, it'd be great if you do that same thing. It'd be great if both people give 2 tracks. Create something a little bit more ambitious. It doesn't have to be longer but maybe with just more things going on. What I'm getting to with these improvisations is eventually I'm going to ask all of you to do something a little bit longer. And these are ideas that you're fleshing out with the towards the possibility of creating something a little bit like a longer piece, 2 or 3 minutes long, towards the end of our work together. And finally, so we have record up through C, make sure that recording is just how you want it. Please submit it by Saturday. Do another improvisation. And finally, please start practicing Beethoven. And percussionists, please practice Tekeli. I mean, that's going to be a tough one. I recommend everyone practice Tekeli. It's not terribly hard for most of you, but there are some of those 16th note runs are tricky. Okay, I think we're about done for the evening. Any questions? I'm going to just quickly look at the chat and see if things have come up. Scottish dances flashback, that's funny. All right. Well, I want to say thanks, everyone. So next week, we'll see how we're progressing on Great Gate. I'll start to talk more about Beethoven. Nathan, I saw your note. I'll get back to you in just a second. I'll start to talk about Beethoven. We'll listen to some recordings of Beethoven, talk about the movement, and do some other fun stuff. I'll hopefully share some fun improvisations that you guys have done. And yeah, I'd like to hear a little bit more from you all next week. So I hope that this is the last time that we have to kind of spend time on the technical aspect of this. So in the future, we can be a little bit more discursive. Okay. Yeah, that's it, everybody. I see, Amy, you asked about the Beethoven. There's no piano part in that. That's correct. There is no piano part in that. And so I'm hoping, Amy, that we can either get you connected to another player to work on some chamber music together, or find another option, because unfortunately the pianist doesn't always play on every piece in the orchestra, so I'm sorry that there isn't a part for that piece. And then Nathan, I'll connect with you by email about your question. All right, thank you very much, everyone. Next week we'll talk a little bit more, you'll talk a little bit more and I'll talk a little bit less. Good evening, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Hang on, I had a question real quick.
Yes.
So, I mean, it was about the metronome in 3/2, and I know you said you'd explain it later, but I was just curious about, so is it going to be, so when it's in 3/2, will it be in 9/8 or will it be in?
If you want to think about it that way, it's in 12/8, okay? So the first part of the measure that's in the triplets, every one of the quarter notes that make up those triplets is getting a click.
Yeah.
So that would make 6 clicks, right? And then the last 2 beats get 3 clicks each. I should have explained it that way. That's way easier to understand.
But wait, but aren't each of the triplets, they're within 1 half note, right? And there's 3 half notes, so it would be 9.
I'm taking it more literally, where I'm actually it's almost like not a triplet anymore, because I've taken away the triplet in a sense and have just given each quarter note a literal beat. So you're hearing for the half notes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, you're actually.
Oh, okay. So basically it's in 6/8, but then it's so basically before the 3/2, each click is on the tripleted quarter note, and then but in the 3/2 it's on the literal quarter note.
That's exactly right.
Oh, okay, I get it.
With the exception of the last 2 quarter notes in the bar, as I explained.
Oh, that's inconvenient, because that's where I don't have triplets.
Right. Those just get stretched way out. So once you get those last 2 beats of the bar, the last 2 quarter note beats of the bar, each quarter note gets 3 full beats.
Oh, so you're saying it'd be like da 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 da? Or...
Yeah, exactly. So it's because of the way the piece is usually performed. Those quarter notes are a terrible transcription of the way the piece is normally performed.
Oh.
You should have just written them as long notes. So in other words, after you play those triplets, those last 2 quarter notes would be better transcribed as a whole bar of 3, 4.
Oh, wow. Okay. All right. I get it. Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah. Okay. Bye.
Bye.
Okay, I was muted.
Joshua?
Yes. So I figured out all the steps of the submitting the audio to the Google Drive.
Great.
But please remind me, how do you have the how do you get access to the Use Symphony Drive folder again? Is it in one of the emails you sent me a while ago, or?
Well, this is the same problem other people were having, that they were having
Okay.
trouble finding the SCCYS Google Drive.
Right.
And I don't really know what the answer to that is.
Okay.
Have you never been able to access it so far?
So far, no, but it also might have been that I missed one of your emails, and it's might be just in there.
Well,
But I'm
not
sure.
really, because I shared access with you, and that really should just allow you to go into your drive and then see it either in your shared folder or. So if
I didn't see that
Did
in
you
my
search?
shared folder. Yeah, in search Google Drive and the shared drives. I don't see it right there.
And are you signed in to your Google Drive with the same email that you used to correspond with me?
Yeah.
Okay, I'll check just to make sure there was no mistake about adding you, and then we can take it from there.
What if I just
Hold on, let me
Joshua a link to the folder?
Sorry?
What if I sent him a direct link to the folder?
That would be, let's try that.
I'll try that, Josh.
Got it.
And who else couldn't get to there? Oh, Ingrid. Send direct link. Let me, can't hurt, right? Because they should have permission.
Yeah. I mean, I did check to make sure Ingrid was on there, and I think you are too, Josh.
Were there others?
I don't think so. I think it was just the two of them.
Okay, I'll do that for starters. And Nathaniel, one quick question.
Sure.
For the sectionals, I remembered I have to get parts to everybody, and I have scores to the woodwind coach in Nebraska. So I need 2 copies of the score from Zorksky and Baker.
Okay. I can do that. I can scan it on my end and send you those scans.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
All right, great.
Who I hire.
Okay. Thanks.
Okay.
Good night.
Good night. See you next week.
Great. See you next week. Thank you.
Bye. Thanks.
Bye-bye.